All right, welcome back to Cajun Twist. As promised, we're going to come back and do something with that chicken stock from last time. So we're going to do a cream of mushroom soup, homemade, and to go with it for supper, we're going to do some steaks. As you can see right there, that is chuck eye steaks. It's a little bit cheaper version of a ribeye, but just as good. So we're going to start off and we're going to marinate this, get it ready with a little bit of olive oil, just a little drizzle. Then we'll rub it in. That's going to help pretty much to keep that seasoning to sticking on there for us and help us penetrate in a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in some salt, of course, just a little bit. There is salt in our Cajun seasoning. Got us a little bit of granulated garlic. Get us a nice little shine right there. Next, we go for the Cajun seasoning. So, you put your favorite kind or whatever you have in your area. Just get a light little coating on there, nothing too crazy. Because we're putting a decent amount of flavors into this. When you see a nice little light colored red, you're okay. So now we'll go with some cracked black pepper. And that ought to be just enough on that side. And last thing, just a little bit of dried thyme. So we're going to put a nice little sprinkle from high up so it spreads. And there we go. That's enough on that side. We'll pat it in, flip it, and we're going to do it all over again. And I'll get this finished up, and we're going to put this in the refrigerator. And while we're chopping up our vegetables and getting our soup started, we're going to let this marinate in the refrigerator for a little while, and we'll cook it at the end because it's not going to take very long. So when I get this stuff set up to start cutting up the vegetables, I'll show you how we cut them and everything else, and we'll get the soup ready. So see you in a minute. All right, we're back. So we're getting our stuff ready for the cream of mushroom soup. First thing we're going to start with, we got our trinity here. We got the celery, bell peppers, and onions. We got some garlic, and we have some parsley, and of course we have a bunch of mushrooms right here. So we're going to get it all set up and ready to go, because that's the key to anything, is prepping it all up before you go. So I just split that in half, put them together, and we're going to cut them in small pieces. Now, to get a little faster cut, instead of having to do all this stuff and make it a little better, you use your hands as a guide. So you put your hand right here on the knuckle and slice through and keep the knife against your hand. So you can go ahead and do a whole lot of cutting in a little bit of time. And you don't have to worry about cutting yourself so much. And even if you miss a couple, it ain't no big deal. And of course, when it gets short right there, you be a little extra careful. But got a whole lot of that done at one time instead of taking an hour to do the dang thing. So next we're gonna work on our bell peppers. And if you remember the stock video, these are the ones we kept from the good pieces, and we used the trimmings and stuff for the stock. So now we're going to dice this up. So we're going to do the same thing, use our fingers as a guide, push in, push in, push in. I'm putting them in some wider chunks, and then I'm going to get them close. Turn them this way, it might be a little better. And then we're going to use it again. Just make some little chunks. It doesn't have to be fine and perfect, but there we go. We got that in there. And we're going to do the same thing here. There we go. Now, that's good. Now for garlic, we're just going to go ahead and put this down and hit it, and it loosens them up a little bit. We're just gonna take a couple cloves out of there to add in. So we're just gonna pull them apart like this. And the easiest way to get that stuff off, I'm just gonna use 3. Smack them, put them under the knife and hit them. Then the jackets come right out. Peeling stay behind. And that's quick and easy. Now we go for our onions, and we're gonna dice the onions because we don't want big chunks tonight. So we're gonna cut that, and we're gonna cut it down the middle like this. Same thing with this one. Trim the top, straight down. So once we get them there, we just gotta peel them off. Whoa, slippery. All right, there we go. Let's get that last little peel off of that one. Let me get this one. There we go. All right. Last one. There we go. And we leave the root on this particular dicing. Just makes it a little bit easier to do what I'm about to do without it falling apart on you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut these long ways without going all the way through. We're going a little further back, get close to the root. And once we have it here, just turn it to the side and use our finger guide. And when it gets down like that, just trim it off the side. Root gone. And we'll do the same thing. And this don't take long at all whenever you get a little bit better at it. And trust me, there's people way better than I am. And way faster. But I'm sure they've been doing it quite a bit longer than I have. All right. Onions are almost done. We'll chop up that parsley and then we'll be ready to start cooking. So, let's get this going. All right, and with our parsley, after I've washed it, we put it out the garden earlier. So we're just gonna take it and roll it on up in a bunch like this, almost like a ball. Then we're gonna hold it down as tight as we can. Just run our knife through. And once you get it roughly chopped like that, just run your knife through a few times and no big deal. We are just about done. It don't have to be super fine because it's gonna cook down to a small pieces anyway. All right, we're gonna get the pot set up and then we'll get you back later. All right, we're here. We're ready to start. We got our pot heated up. First thing we're gonna do is just pour us a little olive oil in there so we can get our onions started. And we're gonna start with just onions, and the reason is because we want them to get sweet when we caramelize them. If we add all the vegetables at once, there's a lot of water in these vegetables, and whenever it gets in there, it'll just take that much longer to brown our onions and get the sweetness out of them. So, as you can see, my oil pours slow. It's not that I put that much. So the first thing we're gonna do is be careful and put just our onions in. All right. There we go. Put this back right here. And we're just gonna start mixing a little bit. Make sure it don't stick. And to help just how long, you're gonna take a little bit of this sea salt and put it in those onions. That'll help get some of that water out of them and start that browning process. So, we're gonna let these get to a little bit more of a golden brown, and then we will come back and add the rest of our vegetables in and get that going. So we'll see you in a second. All right, we are back. You can come in and see they're not dark, but they're just getting a light golden color. They're nice and soft. So we've definitely pulled the natural sweetness out of that onion. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put our bell pepper and our celery in now and get that going. All right, next up is gonna be the mushrooms. But I wanna get a little bit of water out of this before I start adding the mushrooms. And not a whole lot, just let them sweat a little bit. But they are gonna finish cooking inside the chicken stock liquid, and the bell peppers don't change all that much flavor when you cook them down like an onion does. So just a couple more seconds and we're gonna throw our mushrooms in, and I'm gonna go get those real quick and we'll be right back. All right, we back. We got our packs of sliced mushrooms already. We've got a few packs and we're just gonna see about how many we're gonna put in. Probably going to use just 3 packs, but this will cook down pretty small, so you know what, let's just go ahead and put the 4th pack in. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put us a little bit more of this olive oil in, because we got us a lot of ingredients that's going to soak up the oil that we've already put in. And then we're gonna season it all up. So we get this oil first. All right. Now, we're also gonna take a little bit of butter just for extra flavor and drop that right in there. So just go ahead and mix it up a little bit, and then we'll start seasoning it all up. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and take some more of this sea salt here. Put us a little bit. Not too much. We can always add a little bit later. And we're going to go with our Cajun seasoning, because we ain't making nothing without our Cajun seasoning over here. We're going to put just a little bit of that for now. And keep that over to the side in case we want to add more. And we're going to add some thyme. And that's good right there. Just for good measure, a little bit of the granulated garlic. All right. So, let's give her a good mix up. Make sure nothing sticks. We gotta stay on this right here for this stage. This ain't one of them ones that you're gonna leave the room and go sit down for a minute. You gotta keep it constantly going and let it sit for a few minutes and then stir it for a little bit. But the good news is once we put that chicken stock in, we're gonna let it simmer for just a little while. And it won't take long after that. So, oh, one jumped out on me. All right, so we are gonna finish softening these mushrooms up, get some of that water out of them. And then we are gonna go ahead and put our actual garlic in, and then it'll be time for the stock. So we will see you guys in just a few minutes. All right, we made it back. So we can look in the pot now and you can see all those mushrooms shrunk down quite a bit in here. And we got some liquid in the pot right here, which is why we waited to put our garlic in, because that's liquid that is cooked out of those mushrooms and all the rest of the vegetables. So we're gonna grab this little garlic right here that we chopped up earlier. We're gonna put it in. And at the same time, we're gonna put a pinch of this parsley. We're gonna save some to put at the end as well. That way we get flavor from both sides of it. And now, okay. We're gonna let that simmer for just a couple minutes and let that garlic get in there. And it's gonna be time to put our stock in. So, we got our stock pretty well ready. I got these out of the freezer. So, got one in the refrigerator that I saved, but I figured since we're gonna make a big pot, I needed to pull some extra out. So, make sure we good to go there. Yep. Okay. So now we're gonna start adding a little bit of stock, and we're gonna take these frozen ones in first. That way that pot can melt all that ice out of there for us. There we go. Now we're gonna put those up and we're gonna cover it for a minute and let that start mixing in. And then once that melts, we'll probably add the rest of our stock and see how much of that we need to use. So this here is gonna simmer now for probably, I'd say a good 20 minutes. And then we will be ready to mix the cream in it and everything else. And then we're gonna get started on our steaks in just a few minutes. So go ahead and stay tuned and we'll be back in a second. All right, we made it back. We're gonna look in here and we're gonna see we got us a nice little boil that's simmering pretty good. So we have to taste it now. Because if you remember, we didn't put any kind of real seasoning in that stock. All we did was put a little bit of the herbs and stuff and some peppercorn, but there's no salt, there wasn't any seasoning. So we're gonna take that. Okay, now that's definitely gonna need some salt, and we're gonna need some little extra kick for sure. So we're gonna start off with this because there is salt in this stuff right here. We're gonna put that in. We're gonna stir it, and then we're gonna sample it again. Now, if you're cooking for your family, just keep using the same spoon. Who cares? But obviously, if you're cooking for other people, when you retaste, you want to get you a clean spoon so you don't keep putting your germs in for everybody else. So, got that stirred in. Let's see here. We're going to put a little more salt in. You just have to sample it and taste it and put some more in, sample it and taste it and figure out what tastes good for you. And now that we got a little bit of extra seasoning in, we're going to sample it and see if we need to keep adding. getting better, but we still need some more salt. I think we're good on our Cajun seasoning. But I know that looks like a lot, but like I said, that's a lot of liquid in that pot that has virtually no salt in it whatsoever. So, we do it again. All right. Now, do that, we're going to come in and get us some of this whipping cream here to start making our actual cream of mushroom soup. And we just pour it in a little bit at a time and see until it turns the color we're looking for. So we're going to start off with 2 and see what it does. I think we're going to add that 3rd one in. Grab it. Go. That looks a little better. So let's go ahead and give that a good little mix. And now it's starting to look a little more like what it should look like. Right, now we're going to bring this up to a simmer, and we're going to have to add a little bit of this cornstarch in here to thicken that up. But in the meantime, I got my pan hot right here. We're going to bring it up, and I'm going to get the steaks, and we're going to start that off. Now, we're going to take our avocado oil here. And we like that one because it's a high heat. It doesn't give you a burnt taste like olive oil can if you overheat it. We're gonna add all the way around there. And we're gonna lay our steaks in away from us. That way it don't splatter backwards on us. Nice little Saints cutting board. And we're just kind of get that oil all the way around it. And we're going to do this on a high heat. And we like our steaks about medium rare to medium, so this won't take long at all. Obviously, if you want to get them a little more well done and ruin your steaks, then go ahead and cook them for a lot longer. But we're going to cook ours for about 5 or 6 minutes at the most. And we're going to let them rest. And while that's going, I'm making some garlic bread for the soup, made with some parsley out the garden and some seasoning that we're going to use and some butter. So once we get the steaks resting, we'll put the bread in the oven, and when that's all done, it's time to eat. All right, see y'all in a little bit. All right, so before we flip, we're going to add us a pat of butter right there, and we got us some rosemary that came out of the garden. We're going to put that right in there and let that go. And then what we're going to do is in a second we're going to flip all that and let that build up and get all the way around. And when I flip this, it's going to look like that. That's a real pretty cut right there. Now, as we do that, I'm gonna slide that up and let all that butter get in there. We're gonna baste it. And we'll just keep doing that until it's ready. While we're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and get me a nice little fork. And we got that softened butter and parsley in here. So I'm just gonna start mixing it up a little bit. And once I get it kind of softened up enough and mixed, we'll add our seasoning to it and spread that on our bread. All right, that's good enough for that part. And we're using a little bit of Montreal steak seasoning. It's good for way more than just steaks. Matter of fact, I didn't even put it on my steak tonight. I just put it in here, and you don't need a whole lot, just a little bit, and we're gonna mix that up. Now, as we're mixing, I'm keeping an eye out on those steaks. And what we're gonna do is check the bottom of them now. Oh, starting to look good, but it ain't where I want it. A little bit more. So, we will take our bread and get us a little bit of that on there. Spread it all nice. That one, and one more. There we go. And that's good like that. It won't be long. We're going to throw that in the oven. So I want to flip these steaks. That's the color I'm looking for. One more flip, and we're going to baste that side. And those are ready to put them resting. So let's get the basting going again. Cut that fire off right there. I'm just gonna get me a couple plates to rest these on. A little bit of rosemary over the top of it just to get a little extra flavor. We're gonna let that drain a second. All right, we're just gonna sit and let these rest. I'll put them over here. And now, I'm gonna go on and get one of these little trays for the bread. Put that on there. And go into the oven. So, next thing we're gonna do, now that our cream of mushroom is starting to boil a little bit, we're going to thicken it up with this cornstarch. But you always want to wait until you start seeing it to boil. And it don't have to be a giant bubble boil, but you mix about half cornstarch and half water in a container like this, and you pour it. And we'll start with about that much. Just like anything else, we can always put more, but if we put too much and it thickens it up way too much, then we end up having to add more stock, and I gotta go defrost all that, and we just gonna try to do it right the first time. So, alright, still a little bit too thin for what I want. So we're just going to go ahead and add the rest of it. Now, we're going to just add the last of our fresh parsley that we chopped up on top of it. And this is just about ready. We will see when the bread comes out the oven. And it's gonna be time to test it all out and see how we did. So we'll see y'all in just a little bit when the bread's coming out. All right, we're back and we're at the last step. I pulled out my freezer, some green onions that I picked out the garden and put up. We're gonna throw it on. Last step. Just get a little bit of that on there. That'll be good. Now it's time to go ahead and serve this. So we gonna take that. There we go, almost there. All right, put that there. And we will put this right here. And that's what we got. Cream of mushroom soup, steak, and homemade garlic bread spread on some good French bread. So hope y'all enjoyed that. If you liked it, subscribe, give us a like, comment, whatever you want to do. Thank you.